Hopefully everyone can hear me well. I can project, but the microphone helps me project even further. I'd like to thank you everyone for coming out today. Also like to thank the Jefferson County Library for hosting this event, as well as Jefferson County Department of Emergency Management. These programs and events are really helpful in guiding people and giving them the information they need to address any kind of emergency issues that we face here in the area. Today we're going to talk about a couple of great things. Well, wildfire is great in some ways, but that's my area of expertise. And then following my conversation, Laura from the County Department of Health is going to speak about heat-related issues and smoke, which is certainly related to these events here. As we get started, I'm going to certainly invite you to ask any questions you have. That is our goal, is to get your questions answered today and provide as much information. And if we give you a little bit of a fear of God and give you a little scare and promote you to doing some action, then that's a win too. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So our goals today, this is fine. We're going to talk about the current update on what our wildfire risk looks like as we head into this season. We're going to talk about how wildfires spread, because that gives us better information on the things we can do to reduce the risk of them impacting our homes. And we're going to be able to give you some tools and actions that you can do to mitigate that wildfire from impacting your home. We're also going to give you information on how you should respond if there are wildfires in the area and what you should do. And we're going to give you some resources. Those of you who are familiar with using QR codes and being able to capture things on your phone, get your cameras ready, because I've got QR Palooza coming at the end of this. Okay? And certainly, like I said, any questions, we want to be able to answer those questions. Just go ahead and raise your hand in the middle of that. My job is to repeat the question for the recording, which I always struggle with, but I'll do better today because I've just said it. All right, so let's get into the current conditions. As you can see, Jefferson County is in the yellow. We have an abnormally dry season already. If you have taken a look at the Olympic Mountains, there is not a lot of snow in the mountains. It was about 30, 40, maybe 50% max of snowpack this year for the winter. So we are looking at some potential drought, or at least abnormally dry conditions over the next 6 months. Now, every month, the National Interagency Fire Center does a projection on what the fire potential outlook is looking like. A month or two ago, Washington State was barely even in any red. And now, right now for June, they're predicting the eastern half of the state has a higher than average risk of wildfire. As we move into July, that's right, exactly. We do see that our area becomes at a higher risk of wildfire. And then we move into August and the whole state's red. So we are anticipating an active wildfire season. Those of you who remember, in the last couple of years, we have had a couple of wildfires, particularly on the south side of the county down near Bryn. We're kind of hoping that we can avoid that, but we also are hoping we avoid wildfires up in this area too. Now, how wildfires develop and grow is based on a couple of different factors. The fuel load, which is basically all that vegetation and growth that has come up in the forests. That all impacts how a wildfire grows and burns. The air temperature, yes, a warmer day is going to be more prone to having wildfires grow because the relative humidity in the air is lower when it's warmer. And over time, with warmer temperatures, the moisture that's in the fuel itself becomes drier. So the shrubbery, the trees, all that wooded material out there, as it gets drier within the interior core of that plant, it's more prone to ignition. So the defensiveness of that plant is reduced. Also, the wind speed and the direction the wind is moving really impacts where that wildfire is going to go. As you've seen, certainly in the Hawaii fires a couple years ago and the LA fires a couple years ago, high winds really drove those fires. The fires that are going on in LA right now are also driven by wind too. So the wind speed is important. And we get a little bit of wind here. I was at an event in Port Townsend for the Roadie Festival Parade this last weekend. I had to take my tent down because it was blowing it so much it was moving it even though it was weighted down. So we do get wind up here. Now, wildfires really grow most importantly by using that wind and spreading their embers. So those little pieces of burning material will float and fly hundreds of yards or even miles downwind and drop onto a piece of property, and now you've got a burning ember. And if it finds fuel, that's where that fire continues to grow and it expands. So what we're going to talk about is ways to try and reduce the risk of those embers from igniting things. Now you also see those fires that kind of burn through grass meadows and move slowly depending upon the wind. That's also another way they burn, but it's predominantly through airborne embers. And then the crown fires, those are the ones that are really nasty. Those are the ones where the fire gets up into the upper levels of these evergreen trees, and the sap and pitch in those trees is very flammable, so that a tree catches fire in the crown, it burns very hot, very fast, and it spreads very quickly. So we've also got some recommendations on how we can reduce the risk of those crown fires emerging on your property too. Now I also put nearby structures in here because if your neighbor's house is not protected and it catches fire, that can create enough radiant heat that it can ignite other structures or pieces of vegetation on your property. So this really is a neighborhood approach. If one household or property in your neighborhood takes a lot of proactive steps, but nobody else does, it really kind of reduces the impact of those proactive steps. So it's really best to try and work within your neighborhood and with your neighbors to try and take some of these positive steps. Because our goal is we want to prevent that wildfire from becoming a structure fire. And we do that by a couple of different methods, two methods. Particularly, it's the home hardening. We want to create that hardened shell that's fire resistant on the property. We use non-combustible materials, and we prevent accumulations of combustible materials around the property, or particularly around the house. And we also want to prevent ember entry from getting into the home. Now that doesn't just mean through the front door or through a window. It also means through a soffit vent, a gable vent, or a crawl space vent. The second approach we do is we use defensible space, and that's really moving out away from the home. The zones that move out away from the home, more in the landscape itself. So we'll talk about some of those things. That includes creating clearance between that vegetation and the structure. All right, so let's talk about home hardening and some of the construction materials. Right here you see an asphalt composition shingle roof, and that's just one type of roof that we have right here. The asphalt composition shingles, the metal roofs, and the clay and cement tile kind of roofs, those are all fire resistant. If that airborne ember was to land on one of these roofing materials, it's going to basically just peter out and do nothing because these materials will not ignite just from that. However, if you do have wood shakes or shingles, there is a risk of ignition there. So when you also move down the roof itself, many people have metal gutters, and that's good because those metal gutters are not ignitable. Or if you have vinyl gutters, those can ignite. Now what's important about these materials is the asphalt shingles, the metal roofs, the clay tile, and the metal gutters are all non-combustible. But if you allow leafy vegetation to accumulate on the roof, from wind-blown leaves, tree branches falling, pine needles dropping, and it stays on the roof in the valleys or moves down into the gutters, that dry vegetative material is combustible. So we want to make sure one of the best things to do is to keep your roof clear of any of that material and clean out your gutters on a regular basis. That may be 2, 3, or 4 times a year, depending on what kind of weather conditions you have and tree conditions around the house. Now, when it comes to siding, wood siding, that includes wood lap siding, panels, or even shingles, certainly that is combustible. The likelihood of an ember landing on a vertical surface and holding is less, so I'm not as concerned about that siding material. Composite cement siding, which is often known as hardy board, that is non-combustible, so that is a good choice. Metal siding is also non-combustible. So what this gives you an opportunity to do is look at the materials on your house right now. And I'm not advocating for going out and replacing all these things if you have combustible materials. But if you have a choice in the future to change your siding, or you're selecting buying a new house and you can buy one that has these non-combustible materials, you'll gain a benefit there. Decks are also something to be aware of. Most decks have some sort of wood framing underneath, and they either have composite, also known as Trex, decking on them, or they have wood decking on them. Those are certainly very combustible. Even the Trex will burn if it's exposed to enough heat. Okay? The other element here, and we talked about air embers moving into certain spaces, we want to make sure that your roof and attic spaces where there's ventilation have proper screening on them. So that includes the soffits, the gables, roof, and ridge vents. And full disclosure, these are my soffit vents and my gable vent on my house. So I am calling out the cobbler who has no shoes. I need to do work on my soffit vents. Also my crawl space vents. Yeah, it's one of my crawl space vents. The reason I'm calling these out because all of these holes, the openings in this screening on all these locations is 1/4 inch, which is pretty common for builder grade kind of stuff. I'm gonna step over here. But what we recommend is screening material that is 1/8 of an inch or less. And I've got a sample of a product here that is a fire resistant screening that has 16-inch openings. My role and my job at my house is to cover all my soffit vents with this smaller density screening to prevent those embers from coming in.
Does it have a name?
This one has a brand name on it, and I'm not trying to promote these necessarily, and you're welcome to take a look at it and take a picture of it, but there's a couple of brands just like this. But I'll have it up here if you want to take a look later. So I need to put it on my soffit vents, gable vents, and my crawl space vents too. Now, I also have a deck on the front of my house that lets me get into the house. That deck is about, well, that's it there, and I've got chicken wire because I want to keep the cats out, but that chicken wire is not going to do anything for preventing embers. So I'm also going to take some of this screening material and put it along that deck. That deck is less than 24 inches above the grade, so screening will be good because it will keep those airborne embers out, it will keep leafy debris out, and it will keep the cats out. So that's good. If I had a deck that was larger or higher that someone could easily get under, I wouldn't screen it because this can be a little pricey, but also someone could get under there and blow it out and get the debris out and everything on a regular basis. So if you have any kind of deck, 24 inches or less, it's a good idea to screen it. 24 inches or more, or something that someone can get into, it'd be a great idea to keep that blown out. Okay? So the steps that we're going to do to improve your home hardening. We want to eliminate any combustible leafy debris that accumulates on the roof, gutters, and around the base of the home. Just walk around your home later today and take a look and see where all that leafy debris is accumulating. Because wherever the wind is blowing that leafy debris, it's going to blow those airborne embers too. We also want to eliminate any kind of combustible exterior storage items, particularly in close proximity to the house. Furniture, firewood, lumber, garbage, leafy debris, anything like that. I'm going to admit, most guys have that stack of lumber next to the house that they know they're going to use for a project someday. You are not going to use it for a project any day. It creates a risk. So I'll pick on the guys and say your lumber. I'll also pick on the ladies and say those stacks of plastic pots with all that planting you've done, you're not going to use those again either, and they will burn, so pull those out. They're on equal opportunity there. Plastic pots. I've seen large collections of plastic pots. They do, they're plastic. Yeah. So we're talking about mesh screening on all those vents that is 1/8 of an inch or less, and clear any debris that's stored below your decks. That's not a great place for particularly combustible storage, furniture, wood, lumber, propane tanks, all those kind of things. And if necessary, add that screening to prevent that debris, ember, and animal entry down below. The second way we can kind of do this besides home hardening is creating these defensible space, and we do these in zones. They're called home ignition zones. That first 0 to 5 feet around your home is your biggest bang for your buck. Any work you do to focus on that zone, that first 5 feet around the perimeter, is going to give you the biggest benefit. But as you move out from there, 5 to 30 feet is a good intermediate zone, and then 30 feet and beyond. Not all property lines go beyond 100 feet, but that next zone also gives you an opportunity to do some work. In your intermediate zone and your extended zone, what we want to do is we want to reduce the likelihood of an ember landing in some material there and moving its way up into the crowns of the trees. It can kind of climb up the vegetation much like a ladder, so we call those ladder fuels. What we're going to do is we want to eliminate some of those rungs by creating breaks in those ladder fuels. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk again that first immediate zone. Again, where the wind deposits the leaves, it's going to deposit the embers. So we want to clear any leafy debris that's around the base of the house, particularly in that first 5 feet. If you've got bark mulch around that first 5 feet, it's a great opportunity to replace it with something non-combustible, gravel, pavers, even concrete if you want to do that. But it's a good way to kind of reduce the risk of an ember landing close to the house and then translating that heat and flame into the structure. If you have grass up near your house, keep that grass trimmed and keep it watered, which I know is contradictory to the statement earlier that we may be entering a drought, but you get to find the balance there between keeping things watered, which will protect it, and keeping things trimmed. Now, vegetation up against the house, best practice would be that there's nothing combustible within that 5 feet. I realize that's not necessarily practical. So here's what I'm going to recommend you do. If you've got shrubbery or trees up against the house, try and trim them away from the house about a shoulder's width, something that a person could walk through there is a good distance. Trim it up from the ground a good couple inches at least, depending upon the type of shrub, so that you create a separation between the ground cover and the bottom branches of the shrub. Trim it down also so that if there is an ignition of that shrub, it doesn't create a flame that makes it up into the soffit vents above you, because we don't want that translating to the attic space of the house. Keep it watered and you'll really get a lot of benefit. So best practice, nothing combustible at 5 feet. Realistically, keep those trimmed, keep them well watered, and you'll reduce the risk by that. Now, if you've got trees near the house and those branches are hanging over the roof line, you can create about a 10-foot clearance between the roof and the branch above it. You will gain some additional benefit. You have less opportunity for that any burning in that tree to necessarily translate to the roof. Plus, you reduce the risk of any kind of leafy debris accumulation around there. Now, as you move out to that intermediate zone, that 5 to 30 feet, I'm okay with gravel, with mulch, with bark, with just pine needles on the ground out in that area. But here's what you want to do. You want to eliminate those ladder fuels. Anything that's going to allow that fire to climb from the ground level up into the trees is what you want to create separation. Now, if you've got a tree that's just by its own and you can limit up about 5 to 10 feet, a lot of benefit there. You will reduce the risk of that fire moving from the ground into the crown. If you've got shrubs under those trees, trim either the shrub down or the branches up to create about twice the height of the shrub above it. So if I've got a 3-foot shrub, I want 6 feet of clearance above it. So that's either trimming the branches of the tree up or trimming the shrub down to create a space. The flame height, if that shrub was burning, is about 1.5 times the height. So if we say 2 times, you reduce the risk of that flame reaching the branches. Who knew there was going to be math here today? Now in that extended zone, that 30 to 100 feet, it's the same thing. It has less of an impact on your house, but it certainly increases your zone of protection there. So you want to eliminate those ladder fuels, trim any low-hanging branches that are above the ground, and trim those shrubs. And just for information, this is not my house, but it is around our administrative offices. So there are low-hanging branches that need to be trimmed around our admin this too. Okay, so we've talked about harder materials, that if you have the opportunity to change the materials on your home, or you are buying a house that has non-combustible materials, you'll gain some benefit. You also can consider some screening materials. If your vents are larger than 1/8 of an inch, you can add additional screening on there to reduce that risk. And then you can create these defensible spaces around, in the zones around your home, by creating clearance between the vegetation and your structures and eliminating some of those ladder views. See, easy, right? Okay. Wildfire ignition. This is the things that actually cause wildfires to start, and this is how you can be aware. 85% of the wildfires are caused by human activity. So there is a reason why they start, and it isn't us. There are often lightning strikes, particularly up in the Olympic National Forest, and those do start fires, but it's rare. It's more likely us. That can be caused by unattended campfires, yard debris burning when it's not managed properly. If you do yard work with hot tools and you create sparks. If you drive vehicles over tall, dry grass, so you don't want to drive your car over that. If you happen to smoke, you discard cigarette butts into vegetation, that can also ignite a lot of fires. If you do any towing of a boat or a trailer or anything, and you have your tow chains that are not secured, they can drag on the ground, create sparks, and ignite fires alongside the road. I'm a big advocate that if you burn any wood, you frequently clean and inspect the chimney by a chimney sweep, someone who can get any creosote out, and double check to make sure there's no animals or any issue with the chimney cap on there, which prevents sparks from flying out. And there often are those yahoos who light things on purpose, and unfortunately that's just human nature. So I'm going to ask you to be smart. Because 85% of those wildfires are caused by people, I'm going to ask you to never leave your campfire unattended. Always extinguish it fully when you're done, whether that's removing all the fuel, or dumping water on it, or covering with sand. Pay attention when you're doing the yard work or burning debris. Be aware of weather conditions, dry conditions, windy conditions. That's not a good time to be doing any kind of debris burning. Keep your grass mowed and watered. Properly secure your tow chains. Have your chimney flue cleaned and inspected regularly. I sound like Bob Barker. Many people get that reference. And then pay attention to the fire danger levels. Now those are levels that we just recently adjusted, and we base those on the conditions of the weather, conditions of the fuel, and our available resources when we fight fires. If you've driven by the airport recently, we just put up these signs. We have one right out front of our airport fire station. We also have one on Marrowstone Island. We have one down by Station 7 in Port Ludlow, and by Station 8, which is down on South Point Road in Port Ludlow. These show what the current fire danger level is. Right now it's at moderate, and we have burning restrictions. So you can look out for these. Hopefully we'll get some funding in the future for some more around town, but we're able to get 4 of those thanks to the Washington State DNR. Now, typically throughout the winter, we're at low fire danger level, and that's when we have no restrictions. You are allowed to have recreational wood fires. Grandkids come over, you're making s'mores, great time. You can do some yard clearing and burn the debris in the county. You're not allowed to do it in the city or certain areas of Port Havelock here. You're able to use your gas or propane fueled appliances, barbecues and all that. You can have the open flame, you can do the luau, the tiki torches and everything. So it's a good time. We recently upped it to moderate. Now what that does is that eliminates that yard debris burning or land clearing burning. And it's generally not a good idea to use those gas or propane weed burners because they can get out of hand, but they are certainly restricted during this time period. You are still allowed to have the s'mores fire out in the backyard. You can still use your gas barbecue. You can still use the gas flame table. You can still do the luau with the tiki torches. Everything's good. Yes, there's a question in the back.
Well, under low, can you burn in a barrel?
The question is, under low, can you burn in a barrel? So what are you planning to burn in the barrel?
The brush and the just natural stuff.
Okay, so typically you don't want to necessarily burn in a barrel, but you could burn it on the ground. But brush, yes, you can burn in a barrel. reason I was asking, because if you are considering burning trash in a barrel, that is always restricted. You're not allowed to do that. But the yard waste in a barrel under low conditions, yes. When we went to moderate, that's when that yard waste, whether it's in a barrel or on the ground, is no longer allowed. If we go to high, that's when the fun starts to change. No more smoke fires, no more open flame wood or charcoal cooking. That includes in public areas, but you can do closed wood and flame cooking at home, and that's because you're doing it in a Weber or a device that's designed for that closed cooking at home. You are no longer allowed to use liquid fuel candles, and that's when fireworks are also disallowed. But at that high level, you are still allowed to use your gas barbecue or charcoal cooking, like I said. The reason is the gas barbecue, you can turn off that fuel pretty quickly just by closing the valve on the tank. If we go to very high, no more wood charcoal cooking no matter where you are, but you are still allowed to use that gas barbecue. If we do go to extreme, that's no fun for nobody. Everything is outlawed. So this year we did go to moderate, which was about 2 months early because of the conditions. Back in 2024, we raised it to moderate on July 1st, which was pretty normal. A few days later, we did have to raise it to high based on the conditions and the resources available. And then another week later, we went to very high. So the conditions were pretty extreme. It stayed that way for a little more than a month when we were finally able to drop it back down to high and then back down to moderate on September 17th. And October 1st, we generally drop back down to low. And again, after when it's at low, that's when you can do yard debris burn. Last year, we went to moderate on June 1st. So that was a month earlier than the year before. We raised it to high a couple of weeks later, and we stayed there through October 1st, where we dropped it down to moderate. And we stayed at moderate until October 15th, so it extended. And then as you see there, this year we raised it to moderate on May 8th. Based on the conditions, we probably will be going to the high fire danger level sometime in June, which is, again, earlier than we have over the last couple of years. Okay, if there's any questions about those, keep an eye out for those signs like you see in front of our stations. I've got some other information here. You can also keep an eye out for these signs, which will be around town. These will start showing up pretty soon, where these are kind of giving you the indication. And these will be up until October. All right, now let's talk about what happens if a wildfire occurs. We want to talk about evacuations. The best way to get notification of any kind of emergency evacuation is through Nixle or listening to KPTZ. They are the emergency source for information. Nixle alerts will come to your phone like a text message. This is a screen capture of recent Nixle alerts that basically are just related to road closures. You will often see those. But in the past, evacuations, particularly down in Brennan over the last few years, have shown up on Nixle too. The way that you're going to evacuate is definitely dependent upon the location of the event, the direction it's moving, and the condition of any kind of evacuation routes. Your Nixle alerts will give you some of that information to give you an idea of where you want to go. And we do evacuations based on 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, which aligns with ready, set, and go. And we'll talk about these. Level 1 is be ready. That means there's a wildfire threat in the area. So you want to plan and pack just in case you need to evacuate. You want to gather up anything that you need in your go bag, whether that's water, food, a contact list, cash, prescriptions, whoops, tapped it too quick, extra glasses, any pet supplies, anything else you need. It's a good idea to get a full tank of gas, if you can afford it these days, fully charge your electric vehicle, or fully charge your cell phone. It's a great idea to be ready to go at level 1. When it goes to level 2, there's a high probability that your area is going to need to evacuate. I would recommend evacuating at a level 2 if you need extra time, you have pets, have mobility issues, or you just want to avoid all the yahoos are going to wait till later. So it's a good idea to evacuate at level 2. You will have a little more availability getting out of your neighborhood because later there will be limitations. Because at level 3, it's evacuate now. You'll be told which way to go, everyone else will be going, roads will be blocked by emergency equipment or fire coverage. So it's while you should leave at 3, it's best to leave at 2 if necessary. Okay? There are people who say, well, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and stay, and I'm gonna keep spraying water in my home, and I'm gonna protect it. And I'm gonna tell you, I understand that mindset. I can't fault that, but I can tell you, you will increase the risk to yourself, to our firefighters, and to responding to the overall emergency. And we strongly recommend evacuating. Now, here starts QR Palooza. If you are not receiving Nixle alerts, here is the first QR code where you can sign up to get those. There's 2 ways to sign up. That website gets you to this little box here on the web page, and you can put in your information. Or if it's easier, you can text the phrase Jeffco DEM to the number 888-777. So that's a good way to do it. I'm happy to help anyone do that after this presentation if you want to go ahead and do that. I'm just watching, looks like all the cameras are down. Okay. If you really love reading all about wildfire and you have great sleeping material and you love statistics and data, the Jefferson County Community Wildfire Protection Plan is available online. That is the link to it, the QR code. That gives you all sorts of information. You can actually see specific data to your neighborhood, what the risk is, and basically learn all you need to know about wildfire. Those of you who need sleeping materials can get into this. We just got one QR code. There you go. All right. Now, if you need help getting some recommendations about your home, East Jefferson Fire and Rescue is doing our 2nd year where we have trained volunteers come out. We will walk around your home with you and give you specific recommendations for your home. These are our home wildfire assessments. We started these last year with a grant from Washington DNR. They were overwhelmingly popular to the point that while we thought we would maybe do 50 last year, we did close to 200, and I had 60 homes on a wait list over the winter. We just started yesterday starting to tackle that wait list, and I've already got more people signing up. So we have a crew of 4 volunteers and 2 career personnel who are trained, prepared to come out and do these wildfire assessments. We're just getting them scheduled. If you have already signed up and no one's reached out, we'll be doing that in the next couple weeks. But we're hoping to do hundreds of these this summer. And if you missed this QR code, I've got it on a sign that we can get you to. And these are at no cost, by the way. Okay. Now, this is a cool little tool. This is put up by Oregon State University. If you're making some landscaping decisions and you want to avoid fire, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Flammable plants, there we go. This is a great resource. It's a list of all the fire-resistant plants that you can choose to put in. When we do the assessments and I see arbor vitae and junipers, which a lot of people have around their homes, those will go up like a candle. So we want to avoid those materials if we can. And people always say, well, you tell people to remove those things. I think it's a good idea, but if you can trim them up, clean out the dead debris, and keep them watered, it's okay. I was at a house yesterday where the husband wanted to get rid of the arbor vitae that was 3 feet from the house. The wife was like, So I did a little marriage moderation, or, we came up with a plan. She was gonna try and move it about 30 feet away, and he was okay with that. So, but this is a great resource. I wish I had multiple copies to hand these out. I don't. That's why this QR code will get you to a link where you can order them for a couple bucks, or you can download the PDF of it for free. Okay. my kids growing up, we always went to concerts, and everyone at concerts has their phones up recording the thing. I don't know why you can't be part of the concert, you have to record it. But kind of, this is what it must feel like when people are performing at concerts.
You might want to mention, this is being recorded and it will be posted, although sometimes it's a little hard to read the slides, so.
Right. Yeah, so in case anybody didn't hear it, this is being recorded. All this information is available on our website also, too. Okay, so what is happening for East Jefferson Fire Rescue this year? A couple of cool things, just so you know. We're getting 2 brand new fire engines. We are really, really grateful and appreciative to the support the community has given East Jefferson Fire Rescue over the years, including this recent levy lift request, which was passed, thankfully. It allows us to continue to replace some of our aging equipment, including these 2 new engines. It allows us to continue to do more training and prepare for different risks and more of this public education stuff. So this is really good that we're getting these 2 new engines this year. We're expanding this home wildfire assessment program. I've got more people to do it, and we're trying to do more than we did last year. We also feel it's really important that everyone has working smoke alarms in the home. So we, through a grant with the American Red Cross, have crews that will come out and replace your batteries or replace your smoke alarms if necessary at no cost. It's really, really important. And if there's anything you can take away from anything I'm saying today, working smoke alarms in your house will save your life all the time. Okay, maybe that's a bit extreme. It will really do quite a bit to save your life. We also have hands-only CPR courses. We have a new one that just got posted, available on June 5th. It's a Friday. It'll be held in the morning at 10 a.m. at Station 6 down in Chimacum. So that's a really good thing. There will be a story coming out probably next week. During the roadie run, one of the runners actually had a cardiac event, and people were nearby who knew compression-only CPR. They started compressions. They got an AED from a nearby church. By the time our crews got on scene a few minutes later, they had already restored circulation for this person. So compression-only and citizen CPR is tremendous for saving lives, especially in a rural area like this. So if you're not familiar with this, I would highly recommend it. If you took CPR 20 years ago and you're like, I don't want to put my mouth on people's other mouths, we don't do that anymore. It's compression only. So it eliminates that excuse. We will be doing a full community risk assessment this summer. This is where we analyze all the data on the demographics and the types of calls we've got, and allow us to target our public education and prevention campaign sooner. So that'll be posted soon. We're getting ready for our All County Preparedness Day, which is scheduled for June 27th this year at Finn River. All sorts of information. It's this presentation on steroids. It's all sorts of information about emergency preparedness. The county fair, which is always fun, will be held August 9th through 11th up at the fairgrounds. They're not the right dates.
They're not the right dates.
Did I check? Oh, well, check the website.
14, 15, 16.
They changed it this year. I don't know if they did. I was hoping it was gonna be the 9th through 11th, but all right. So I'll correct that. But the county fair is great. This is when we get to make kids dress up as firefighters and run through the obstacle course. And it's always a big winner too. It's a good Kodak moment, sure. Also, our 5th annual Fire Rescue Festival, which will be occurring uptown Port Townsend. It is the 154th anniversary of the fire service in Port Townsend. So we celebrate that with a great family event on October 10th this year. If you want to know more about all these information, including the correct dates, you can sign up for our online newsletter. I write this once a month. I do not spam you. I do not sell it. I just send it out once a month. But it's a good way to kind of stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the agency. Especially if you don't have social media, you don't like going to websites, that's certainly a good way to go. Thankfully, people are taking a shot at this. Okay, so that is my presentation. Few questions in there, that was pretty good. What I will do is I'm going to actually unhook here so Laura can get set for her presentation, and I'll answer any questions you have while I am doing that.
For anyone who didn't pick these up outside, I'm going to reference both these magnets and brochures. So if you could pass them back And all my QR codes are in the brochure. My name is Laura Gaslin-Tatro, and I work at Jefferson County Public Health. I'm an environmental health specialist and subject matter expert for climate and health for Jefferson County. And I'm going to be talking about extreme heat and wildfire smoke safety. As our climate is changing, this is much more of an issue here in our very temperate climate. We're having more droughts, we're having more wildfires, and we're having more high heat days. We're going to start talking about extreme heat, and people tend to underestimate heat. You think, oh, a hot summer day, that'll be great. We'll have popsicles with the grandkids or the kids. But this is actually the deadliest type of weather event, is extreme heat. And certain populations are at higher risk, particularly anyone who works or lives outdoors, anyone who's older, over 65, young people, even teenagers, anyone who's pregnant, anyone who has a health condition. And something that people often don't think about is that nighttime cooling is really important to maintain human health. Heat, as I said, is the most deadly weather event. It kills more people than all other natural disasters combined. And hot days in your cooler places are actually more deadly than hotter days in places where people are adapted to it and have the infrastructure for it. A lot of the heat incidences of injuries, illness, aren't necessarily considered to be clearly heat illness, because when it gets hot, cognition is impaired, decision making is impacted, and people are more clumsy. So if you're going to be doing a bunch of work on your house or yard, do it in the early morning, do it in the evening, avoid those hottest times of the day on the hottest days. There's also more work injuries, more people get hurt in the backcountry and doing recreation, and there is a significant increase in traffic accidents on hot days.
How much of that is due to dehydration?
Some of it might be, but a lot of it is just due to being too warm. So even if you're well hydrated, it will affect you. Our workers are at particularly high risk. Agricultural workers have about 35 times the risk of your average person, and construction and other outdoor workers have 10 to 13 times. Heat can affect mental health, pregnancy and birth outcomes, and is at increased risk to infants and small children. We do have heat-related incidents here in Jefferson County. This is looking at 2023, and the percentage of emergency room visits at Jefferson Healthcare that was related to heat. You can see that in August, that was over 11% of all of the visits were related to heat. This is looking at the daily temperatures. Sorry for the small text. The top daily temperatures are Port Townsend with the lower line and Quilcene with the higher, compared to heat-related illness visits at Jefferson Healthcare. So there is a clear connection here. So what do we do about it? How do we plan for heat? You want to keep an eye on the weather and adapt to that. I highly recommend the National Weather Service's heat risk, and I'll show you more of that later. It's also, there's a QR code for that in the brochures. And then you want to understand heat illness symptoms and how to respond to them, and know your options. How can you cool your home, either actively or passively? And where can you go to find a nice cool space to go? The library here is a great option. So the heat risk tool here is really useful. It looks at the forecast for heat, but also takes into account how unusual the temperature is for that time of year, the duration of your day and night temperatures, and factors in heat injury data related. And so it is not just like, oh, the high is 80. Well, a high of 80, 85 in May affects people way differently than in August when their bodies have had time to adapt to it. They've, maintained their AC and been able to turn that up. There's a lot going on with that. This is looking at your heat risk levels and recommendations. So it's color coded to make things nice and easy. And as the levels go up, you want to take higher levels of precautions, especially given whatever risk factor you have. Now, if someone is starting to show some signs of heat illness, these are some steps for how to look out for them. You start out with making sure that folks get shade and water. Make sure they've eaten, because that can help maintain electrolytes. If folks are getting dizzy or feeling faint, you want to elevate their legs as well as cool them down. And if someone is starting to show confusion or feeling sick, you want to cool them down quickly. If it's affecting their mental state, that's when you're going to want to call 911. You want to get help. And you want to get them wet, get their clothes wet, cool them down, elevate their legs. This makes a huge difference in folks recovering from this heat illness. A lot of us out here don't have air conditioning, and so there are other ways to keep your home cool. If you have air conditioning, great. But if there is overload of power, if it gets extremely hot, that is rare here, but it can happen. You want to catch as much cool air as you can at night to cool down, and then use strategic shade on your home. Whether that's if you have blinds or if you tack up some blankets. You can even put cardboard in windows if they don't have blinds. At my house, we have a passive solar, so we have all these big windows. It's wonderful 3/4 of the year. And then in the summer, we put up a whole bunch of these shade sails, and it lowers our home temperature by 15-20 degrees. Plants, not too close, but if you have some trees further out that provide some shade, that's great. And then weatherization, insulation, not only helps with your heating in the winter, but it helps keep your home cool in the summer. If you need somewhere else to go, if your home is just too warm, we have cooling and clean air centers spread throughout the county, and the list is also in your brochure to take home with you, and we have it on our website. These are all great places to go. The community centers in Brennan, Quilcene, and Tri-Area, the libraries, the Nest, the Recovery Cafe, and recently the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, who has a big space in Fort Townsend, has joined us. They have excellent AC and hospital-grade air filtration that they installed during COVID, and so they're a great resource. Or if you have friends or family who have a house with air conditioning and you can go cool down there, especially during the heat of the day, that's a great option as well. But please make sure and take that high heat seriously. Does anyone have any questions about heat before I go on to wildfire smoke? Allison?
I guess I do.
Yeah.
You talked about you're really in danger and get wet the clothing.
Yes.
So I don't know that I'd heard that before. So that's,
Yeah. So any way that you can cool someone off, if you have ice packs, putting it like in their armpits helps. But just getting their clothes very wet, that will help cool them off as it evaporates.
even wet the hair maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, interesting.
And stay with them and call for help if it's getting serious at all.
And to keep yourself cool, you can tie a wet bandana around your neck, you can wet your own t-shirt and wring it out and
Yeah.
wear that. Or you can put cold water on your wrists, or like I said, under your armpits.
Mhm.
But yeah, getting something wet around your neck will help,
Yeah,
Or wet your hat.
yes.
yeah, those are great.
I mean, I've done that like kayaking.
Yeah.
Just put it in the water.
It's also good to know that your home air conditioning is not gonna make your house freezing cold if it's 100 degrees outside.
Yes.
You might get about 20 degrees of cooling out of it, so it's not gonna help to turn it down to 65, it's never gonna get there and you'll burn out your motor. But, if you do these other things, and even use fans in addition to the air conditioning, and just
Mhm.
don't expect it to get your house really cold, but if it's 100 degrees outside, maybe 80 degrees inside, you may wanna restrict your activities, not do anything strenuous.
Exactly, yeah.
Ooh, that's a-
Thinking about how strenuous of activity you do when it's hot is really important as well. And depending on your AC system, if you wanna cool a portion of the house, that can be really helpful as well, because you can get that cooler. We would cool our child's bedroom, we would treat that for smoke and cool it, everyone would go sleep in there. And that was really helpful, at my house.
Can you put a wet cloth in front of a fan? Does that help cool?
It can help a little bit. It's not as effective as some of the other options.
If you don't have AC.
Yeah. Yes.
I never quite have a sense of when during the day to close my windows, because it kind of feels good to have the windows open all day long. So do you have a recommendation about that, to close your windows?
It's usually earlier than you think because it's significantly cooler at night and in the early morning. So usually closing them by 8 in the morning.
Wow.
As much as it's nice to have that airflow, that will help you capture the coolest air, and maybe even earlier if you're up.
And then when do you get to open them back up?
When it cools down, when it's cooler outside than it is in your house.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Growing up in the 50s, what we did was, you have a window fan blowing
You
out
probably do.
at
Yeah.
night. That draws cool air in all the other windows. In the morning, button it all up.
Yeah.
It'll cool down the mass of your house and everything in it.
That's a great way to do it, yeah. Unless it's really smoky.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that changes.
And then if you set up your window fan,
One window.
you wanna put an air filter on it, and I'll talk about that with wildfire smoke. All right, I'm happy if folks have other questions about heat to answer those at the end, but we're gonna talk about wildfire smoke a little bit. As you have noticed, I'm sure, there's more wildfire smoke as there's more wildfires in the region. And something that people often don't realize is that wildfire smoke is a mixture of pollutants, and it's not just little particulates, but there's ozone, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hazardous pollutants, volatile organic compounds, and nitrogen dioxide are all in that smoke. Now, the smoke is particularly dangerous for the smallest particles, and about 90% of what is in wildfire smoke is this tiny particle. So this is a human hair. This is what we call PM10, and PM is just a unit of measurement. And what we're really concerned about is the PM 2.5. So that's these little red ones, really tiny. This is dangerous because it gets into your bloodstream, it passes the blood-brain barrier, it passes the placental barrier. Something I was thinking about a lot last year when I was pregnant. And so it can can affect you, and not just your respiratory system, but your cardiovascular system, everything, your brain. So you want to be really careful about wildfire smoke. It might be, oh, you know, it's okay, I'm not coughing that much when I'm in it, but it can have effects on you for a couple days afterwards that you don't necessarily realize acutely in the moment. Some of those effects can be that irritation that you have probably experienced, and some coughing, wheezing, shortness of breath, but headaches, fatigue, irregular heartbeat, chest pain, this is all something to pay attention to. There is an overall increase in hospitalizations and deaths, even from healthy individuals. Fewer people have the most severe impacts. So many folks have just minor symptoms, but the more exposure and the more risks you have, the more likely it is to be more serious. Folks who are at higher risk, anyone with a heart condition, anyone with a lung condition, a respiratory illness, diabetes, COPD, asthma, children, including teenagers, they tend to respirate faster and have higher exposure because of that. Anyone who's older, anyone who's pregnant, anyone who is outdoors a lot. And something that we sometimes don't talk about so much is that people of color end up being at higher risk, tribal and indigenous people, and people who are lower income. They tend to often have higher exposure. And even folks who are not any of these categories, there is risk for them as well, especially when you have higher levels of exposure, or maybe some condition that you don't know about or hasn't been too serious. One of my friends had asthma, but well controlled, not a big problem, and was out backpacking, had a bunch of wildfire smoke roll in, and actually died from that. She was 23, athletic and 23, yeah. So take it seriously and be careful. So what can we do about it? We can do a lot to keep yourself safe. First thing, you're learning a bunch here. We have brochures, we have extra brochures. We're happy to send you with some extras and share your knowledge with your community. Please get the information out there. You can monitor airnow.gov and know your options. Local clean air centers are the same as at the cooling centers. You can create a clean air room at home, and I'm going to talk about that, but you just need MERV 13 or higher or HEPA filters. And if you are going to go out into the smoke, wear a tight-fitting N95 mask or similar or higher level of respiratory protection. This needs to be tight-fitting. These ones are really nice, and we have a bunch to hand out if you want some. They have straps that go around your head. This will help them fit tighter than just the ones around your ears. Those are great for virus protection, but these are better for smoke because you don't want the little particles to leak in. Yeah.
Something to say about tight fitting?
Yeah.
Beards.
Yeah.
Eliminate any kind of tight fitting.
That is a problem. If you're gonna be out in the smoke a bunch, I mean, there's a reason why firefighters and wildland firefighters have to shave. It might be the time to do that for a couple months. It'll be cooler in the summer too. So, Air Now is from the EPA, and they have levels of what your air quality is. They take their data both from state regulatory sensors. We have one at Blue Heron Middle School, and low-cost home sensors. If anyone's heard about purple air sensors, they're a couple $100. We have put up a number around, and then many folks have them at their homes or businesses. And that helps you, they're not quite as high quality as the expensive regulatory sensors, but they're pretty decent, and they use a correction factor to get some good data from that. Another option is a handheld air quality sensor, and I'll pass this around. This, you can look at your PM 2.5 or your air quality index. We help make sure that locations like schools and our clean air centers have a way to check what the air quality is. Now, this isn't as good as the regulatory or other sensors, but it's really good for looking at, oh, this room is a lot cleaner than this room. This room is increasing its poor air quality. Wildfire smoke is getting in somewhere. Let's go try to find that problem. Or we're running a HEPA filter. This room is reasonably well sealed. The air quality is getting better. So these are really handy for that. And it's just a pretty simple device.
How much are those generally?
They're like $150.
Is there any place that blends these out so we can kind of monitor our homes and then get them back?
There is not. That's a great idea. Yeah. Right now we have them, but we only for like big organic schools and the clean air centers. But so this is our the air quality guide. This is the state one that we follow. And they use something called the air quality index, which just takes your PM 2.5, your particles, and makes it into a nice clear index of what the risk level is and recommendations for what you should do and precautions you should take at each air quality level. So we have good, where, you know, go do whatever you want. If you are extremely sensitive, even if it is still good, but it's like 40, you might pay attention a little bit. Moderate, you're gonna wanna start using some caution. Unhealthy for sensitive groups. At that point, I'm wearing one of these if I'm outside, even though I am not considered a sensitive group. And then unhealthy, where everyone should reduce their exposure, limit time outside. Very unhealthy, and you want to filter your indoor air, set up that clean air room, or go somewhere with filtered air. And hazardous. And we have in the county, a number of years ago, been into the hazardous level, but it is fairly rare for us up here. Unless there is a wildfire nearby. So with the Bear Gulch fire down in Brennan, Quilcene, they got up into these levels last year, but it did not reach all the way up the county. We are working on getting the information out. For folks who are in the know, there is an app for AirNow that you can set up, or you can set up AirNow to give you an email if the air quality is going to be bad. And it doesn't the rest of the time, but if it's getting up into those higher levels, it'll just give you a little ping, and so you can be aware. We are also working with numerous locations throughout the county to have air quality flags up, so that you can, as you're driving around, you can see, oh, maybe I should be careful when I go out. Maybe this isn't a great day to go for a hike or a kayak. Whereas if you see the green flags out, you can know, hey, let's take the dog for a long walk or something. It's a good day to be outside.
Is that something that comes out on Nixle? Air quality?
It has not, unless it gets pretty high. So for the lower levels, we don't. But we definitely are in communication with DEM. If it is hazardous, we'll send out an alert with them. Oh, cool. So at home, you can create a clean airspace, a cleaner airspace, You wanna find a room that fits everyone in the family, close your windows and doors, and filter the air. It's really important when you're doing this to not create your own smoke in that room. Whether that, it's not a good time to fry things, or burn candles or things like that. You wanna stay cool. And something that is really interesting is you can, even just setting out a damp cloth can help catch some of those particles. Creating a cleaner airspace at home, you wanna seal things up so there's really no air leaks in, and you can do tape, you can close things that fit tightly, you can put a plastic sheeting over a door if it's leaky, or something underneath to stop drafts. And then you want to run some sort of air filtration. If you have house air filtration that can run with a MERV 13 or higher filter, that's great, run that. Otherwise, anything with a HEPA filter is good. HEPA filters catch that PM 2.5, or you can make a box fan filter. A box fan filter is really simple. You get your box fan. You want to check the date on your box fan. If it's 2012 or newer, is good to go. Those have an automatic shut off if they get too hot. If they're older, it can be a fire hazard if you run it with your air filter. So this is a 4-inch MERV 13 air filter. You just attach it to your box fan on the inflow side, and that will, and then turn it and run it, and it catches the wildfire smoke in there. If you're wanting to cool off the house by putting something in the window, this is a good option on smoky days, and you just use some cardboard and tape and seal up around it. So that's a good way to bring in some outside air and still keep it clean. You can put a couple of these around, or a handful of HEPA filters. We have a program right now at the health department that anyone who qualifies for any low income services of any sort and is a higher risk individual, so over 65, has a health condition, has a family member who is 65 or older, 18 or younger, or has any health condition, you can come to the health department and get a free portable HEPA filter system. So like a portable air cleaner. Yeah, well, we have supplies. We have some funding. We've got those. It's a 1-page application. And
Where's the health department?
it is right next to QFC in Fort Townsend. So if you just come to the main desk at the clinic, we have those available for anyone who qualifies. For folks who can afford to buy your own, I highly recommend getting either a setup like this or a few portable air cleaners with HEPA filters. Now, the HEPA filter portable air cleaners are nice because they are well protected. They're in a case. You can just get fresh filters as time goes on. The cons to them is that they're often a little bit more expensive, and they don't have as powerful of a fan as this does. However, these are kind of fragile. If you have small children like I do, or pets that might start poking holes in the exposed filters, that's not very helpful. You can also put a loose like cheesecloth over it to help protect it so that the air still goes through, but it's harder for little hands or cat claws to get into it. So all of those are good options as long as your box fan is from 2012 or newer. Let's not create more work for the fire department. They have plenty to do. This is a little more details about creating the box fan filter. And I think I covered all of this, but you wanna make sure it's on a nice stable surface is the other key thing. Here's another, looking at the list of cooling and clean air centers. I talked about these before. The Unitarian Universalists have excellent air filtration. If there is a big heat or smoke event, we will work with some of these locations, particularly the community centers and the Unitarian Universalists, to extend hours. So there will be 4 locations spread out throughout the county, as needed, being able to extend their hours. This is a little bit about your wildfire smoke personal protection equipment. Face masks, a single strap, not so good. Around the ears, not so good. But an N95 that goes around your head, if you have them for home projects, those ones are fine. If you have a respirator with the particle ones, sometimes I like wearing that better because it's more comfortable. That's fine. Anything of this protection or higher is good and will make a big difference for protecting your health while you are out in wildfire smoke. So alerts for heat and smoke. If you follow Jefferson County Public Health, we do them on social media. The Air Now app can send you an alert if you want to do that. NITSL alerts. If there's going to be something extreme, we work with them to send out alerts as needed. And here's the QR code as well. And then do you have any questions for me? Yes?
How long do you anticipate you could use one of the masks that you have there if you had problems over several days?
Technically, you can use it for quite a while. I would take a couple because it gets really uncomfortable when they get damp, and just breathing them is damp. So it's nice to rotate them and then set them somewhere where they can dry.
You mentioned, the forest fires, but what about burning of yard waste? With particles and problems.
That's not good to breathe either, but it's easier to avoid than wildfire smoke is. So if you are needing to do some outdoor burning,
Neighbors.
the neighbors do.
It's the neighbors.
Yeah,
It's always the neighbors.
I would close up your house and run an air filter when they're doing that. We can get poor air quality in the winter as well, when in locations where there's a lot of folks who heat their homes with wood, which is very common here in the county.
Fireplaces, yeah.
But people are much more likely to be already closing up their homes and spending less time outside.
Do you know if Port Ludlow can do burnings?
I don't know.
With the government cuts in monitors and I mean, I've read that the weather programs and things like that are compromised. Are these monitoring systems, have they been compromised at all because of cuts?
They have not at this point. Everything is well established, and so it doesn't take all that much to run it. And a lot of these systems are based on community citizen science, really, of folks who have air monitors out. There is also Purple Air runs its own map. So if there were,
use that, in fact.
yeah. So at this point, Air Now is better because they have the regulatory sensors as well, and then they use a small correction factor, and so they are a little bit better than Purple Air, but Purple Air is a good backup.
More accurate.
Air Now is more accurate.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just gonna make a comment, because somebody asked about the cost of whether you had any of these, handheld monitors to lend. That would be a good thing if you live in an organized neighborhood, or if you get together with your neighbors, pool some money, everyone kicks in $10, you buy one, and then you pass it around all the houses, and then, maybe when you're done with it, you lend it to the next neighborhood.
That's a great
But,
idea.
you could defray the cost that way, and then, cause everyone just uses it to determine their best clean room,
Mhm.
and then, you could lower the cost that way.
They're also helpful because often, once the air outside is getting better, sometimes folks don't open their houses up until it's really clear, and sometimes you've trapped some smoke inside and you're ready to open it up earlier than you think.
Yeah, also, mini splits, some people have the mini splits, they do have filters in them. I don't know how effective they are, but they do need to be cleaned periodically.
Correct, yeah.
And another question I have is, it actually involves propane, around here, propane stovetops. And I know that's been controversial some places where they're now banned in new construction. Are they really that harmful, or when you do cook, should you be running your hood vent and with the window open?
Yes. Yes to both. They are actually quite harmful. You can mitigate that significantly by running a hood vent and opening a window. But they do have a big effect on air quality. Also, depending on the venting from your stove and oven, frying things and cooking things in an air fryer at high heat can actually significantly impact your air quality. And partly because I'm a data nerd about this stuff, I have a little inside air quality monitor. This is a simpler one that costs like $25. And it depending on what the cooking we're doing, it has a big effect on air quality.
Yeah, I do as much outside cooking as I can.
Yes.
If it's like barbecuing or something, or, stir frying and.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That makes a big difference. And if you can switch to electric or induction, that's great. It's better environmentally, it's better for your health. At my house, we switched to an induction stove, and we've been so happy because we cook a lot, and it both goes lower than the propane stove did and it boils water faster, and it's just been a dream to cook on.
That's right.
In the back.
Yeah, just two quick comments. First of all, the mini split, at least the one that we have, does not do a good job for indoor air. It's just very low. Even though we ordered the extra HEPA filter, it's like a 1/16 the size of the total filter, so it's barely filtering the air. And then I second you on the induction stove. We read the article in the New York Times, went out and changed our stove immediately.
Yeah, with the mini splits, most of them don't have a high enough level of air filtration, and you can't just put a higher filter on there because it can overload the motor for it, and so that's why you want some HEPA filters or box fans or something like that to be able to clean your air. And they're great for dust and pollen and, everything else that moves around in the air, germs, things like that. You had a question?
Yeah, well, I have a neighbor who has a propane stove, and wanting to get away from that, they got a stovetop induction unit that they do much of their cooking on now. It's just sitting right on their stove. I'm assuming that probably allows them to have less risk and at a significantly lower price than paying a huge amount of money for a new induction stove.
That is correct. It does help. I'm not sure if there's a slight fire risk putting it on the other stove. But one of the things is just having that pilot light going on it all the time. That has an air quality effect.
Yeah. I think this doesn't have theirs doesn't have a pilot light. It
Yeah.
has some sort of a clicker mechanism.
Yeah.
Most have electronic ignition now, that
Yeah.
pilot lights are pretty
Yeah.
old hat.
Yeah. Yeah, so thinking about your indoor air quality, there's some great videos on YouTube from different organizations talking about caring for your indoor air quality. And then the PUD has some great rebates for heat pump installation, for upgrading, electrifying different parts of your home, different appliances. So I highly recommend checking that out if you're in the process of thinking about electrifying something. Yes?
I'm not clear, how, running a mini split, which I have in my tiny house, affects air quality. Isn't it pulling air in from the outside?
Yes. So I believe so. The mini split, the idea is that they are, it's recirculates. Okay,
It's
thank you.
what?
So it's recirculating air, it's pulling in, it's working with the temperature outside as part of that regulation to be more efficient.
Mhm.
The idea is that they have a filter, but usually that filter is not a tight enough weave to catch wildfire smoke.
But that filter would only be working with internal air, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's just to keep kind of the big particles from gumming up the works of the mini split.
Yeah.
So you would want-
I clean it all the time.
Yeah, so you would want to run a HEPA filter
Oh, yeah.
as well, like a freestanding unit.
No, I
or
was
a
just
wall unit.
concerned about the mini split pulling smoke in from the outside.
Sounds like there's folks who have more experience than me, yeah, so they don't.
It doesn't, yeah, it just recirculates the air that's inside your
Okay,
space.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to.
Any other questions? We have extras of both the brochures and the magnets, and then we have boxes of masks. So thank you. I have some in here and we have some out in the foyer there. Please grab a couple, stash them in your car, in your bag, share them with folks. And thanks everybody for
Both
coming.
excellent presentations, very well.